Well, let's take a closer look at how the ancient Egyptians represented themselves compared to how they represented the Nubians. This is often shown when representing the Nubians, the single one picture from the tomb of Seti I, the black-skinned Nubian. But that's not the only representation of the Nubians we find in ancient Egypt. There are so many, and one wall that is very telling is the wall of the tomb of Hui. You can go look it up. Type on Google, tomb of Hui, complete wall. You'll find it. Very easy, quick search. Let's break it down. Let's compare how the ancient Egyptians represented the Nubians and themselves. This wall is very telling. You're gonna be surprised. Let's jump into it. Well, here you can see the typical Nubian that most scholars and most YouTube videos and most media channels and documentaries like to show. These are the Nubians they like to show. That very dark-skinned Nubian, the jet black-skinned ones. But you can tell already, just from this picture alone, that the ancient Egyptians noticed a difference in skin complexion in the Nubians. Very telling, right? That alone should tell you a lot. So again, pay attention. This is a jet black-skinned Nubian. You can see them in Africa today. And this is a dark brown-skinned Nubian. And then if you pay very close attention to this woman here, she's next to a lighter brown skinned woman. This is a Nubian woman. Let's move on to the nobility. This is clearly the nobility. They're wearing more clothes. The fabric seems to be very rich, right? They have pretty much dressed like the ancient Egyptians themselves. But if you pay close attention to the hairstyles, you can tell these are not ancient Egyptians. These are Nubian princes and princesses by most accounts, by every scholar. This is a representation of Nubians offering stuff to, I think, Pharaoh Ramses I or the second. With the princes and princesses, you can already see that the skin tones have changed completely. The ancient Egyptian artists noticed that the skin tones are varied. There are light brown skinned people and very dark brown to jet black. This is an accurate representation of how skin complexion varies in Africa. We are not a monolith whereby everybody has the same dark brown skin. There are very light brown skinned Africans, there are very dark brown skinned Africans, and there are middle brown skinned Africans, right? Like the ones that are a bit chocolatey there, right? And then there are the very jet black skinned Africans, right? They exist, they're there. So again, here the artist noticed those differences. And now let's pay attention to how this princess here is represented. Her skin is on the light brown side shade, as well as that of the priest here next to the jet black skinned man, right? Pay attention now to this Egyptian male, this Egyptian attendant welcoming them in, receiving the gifts. His skin tone is the same as that of the princess here, who is clearly a black Nubian woman bringing gifts to Egyptians, and their features and skin tones are pretty much the same. Let's zoom in. Full lips, prognatism present, right? The face is no longer straight, right? The profile is not straight for the Africans. It's always oblique at the level of the mouth. And when we move on to the Egyptian official, we see the same features being represented, the same prognatism present, the hair texture is the same, the skin tone is the same to that of the priest here. It's pretty telling. We go down here. These are probably Egyptian workers, right? So we have a dark-skinned Egyptian worker next to a cow and another dark-skinned Egyptian worker, but his shade is lighter brown, which tells you that this so-called red-brown skin of the scholars, being a metaphorical representation of working outside, is bogus. For this drawing tells us all about how they viewed the skin tones. It's not metaphorical, it's literal. If an artist is to represent a bunch of black Africans today, they will have to use different shades of brown to represent different people. Again, remember my example, if I am to represent Rihanna, Jay-Z, and Akon, I will not use the same brown. No. Hell no. I'm not using the same dark brown color. No. Rihanna is obviously very light, but Jay-Z is slightly darker than Rihanna, and then Akon is way darker than all of them, but they're all black people. They're all Africans. Very telling. The ancient Egyptians saw that in the Nubians and themselves. The same people, just different skin tones. The world is there for you to see. Go check it out for yourself. The skin tones of the Nubians vary, and the ancient Egyptians portrayed it on their walls. The features represented on the Nubian faces and that of the ancient Egyptian faces are all but the same. They are the same. Of course, some Nubians have a very strong prognatism, which is normal. Not all Africans have a strong prognatism. Some have a very small prognatism. That does not mean they are not African. So, again, this is very telling. Look at the ancient Egyptians represented down here. Right, compare their skin tone to that of the princess and the priest here. Their skin tone is actually darker than that of the princess and the priest. But of course, you can see other Egyptians being represented with a lighter brown shade. But that does not mean they're not Black African peoples. And then I will not skip these women. There is a set of yellow-skinned women here. Again, I did not say that ancient Egypt was a full-on black society with no admixture, no foreign type being part of the civilization. No, it's not the case. But what I'm saying is this. The majority population was a black population. Pay attention to these Nubians on the boat here. The skin tones again vary. Here is the so-called red-brown skin. Here is the very jet black skin, dark brown skin. Again, very telling. And remember that the Nubians themselves in their tomb represented themselves with a brown skin tone.